Welcome to Phonogenics 101, a Riotboy production hosted by Jeremy Gloff. The podcast where people who love music discuss albums track by track. Please hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Jeremy Gloff or Venmo @Jeremy Gloff. And now, on to the music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101. This is season 3. And when I mapped this season out 2 years ago, I had a game plan in my mind, and I mapped everything out. And we are at the last part of that game plan to talk about the Annie Lennox solo album. So I'm so thankful for this group of people that I've met and got to know speaking about Eurythmics albums. And now we are going to tackle Annie Lennox. Before we do that, I did put a post up on my Facebook saying that I was so close to getting a YouTube partnership. I was only 30 people away, so I'm like, if anyone subscribes to my podcast, I'll give you a shout out on the podcast. So I'm just going to do a quick, here we go. Steph Feeney, Karen Moo, Frankie Huff, Rhonda, Ananda, Alicia, Mariah, Newt, Debbie Hoff, Mark, you commented, Mark Stevens, Richard Smythe, Kelly Brickfield, Jenny Monty, Rose, Lori, John, Kevin Sapkowski, my cousin, Jared Futrell, Kelly Camille, Tom Crane, my cousin, Katie Simmons, Gypsy Todd, Daniel McDonald, Robert Gasson, Melissa Grady, Rudy, Ida Pagan, and my friend Derek. So thank you all for making it possible. Now, we are going to... Now, Annie Lennox did a little bit solo stuff before Diva, but we're going to talk about that in a later podcast. But I'm going to talk about my journey with Diva first. This came out in 1992. I would have been a senior in high school. I'd kind of checked out for the last Eurythmics album. We Two Are One. The only songs I really knew were the ones that were on the American Greatest Hits, and I didn't even love those songs. Then Annie came out with a solo album. It was the same year that Erotica came out. So I was just on the verge of realizing that I was homosexual, and this album was such a companion piece. It was Diva and Erotica. I mean, it's all my life was Diva and Erotica. And talk about polar opposite album rollouts. Like Erotica was so over the top and so in your face, and Diva was so subtle. I think Y came out and I didn't even pay a lot of attention to it. And then one day, like, it just hit me. I bought the album, and the rest is history. So it's interesting. Throughout the years, there's a lot of people that are huge Annie Lennox fans. I've met many people that didn't even know she was in Eurythmics. So I feel like she's one of those solo artists that created such a legacy and such a solo career opposite of the huge band that she was in, that it's monumental. And I was kind of like, if I wasn't so lazy, I wish I could have found someone for this podcast that was more of a, discovered Annie Lennox, but in what time? Where do we have time to find people? But anyway, here we are. I have a room full of people that were huge Eurythmics fans like myself. Tell me about this album coming to your life. Like Annie going solo, she disappeared for a couple years. Then she comes out with this single and this album. Who wants to start? John, go ahead.
Well, I was working at Tower Records in Atlanta actually when it came out. I believe like when I left the prior record company I worked for, like it was towards the end of like 89. So it was like still the tail end of We Two Are One. And then Tower in Atlanta opened around 90, end of 89 or early 90. And, it was the first Tower in Atlanta. It was like the second or third in the South. So like when this album came out, it was like, I already immediately had established myself as a Eurythmics fan. So like any of the buyers or, people, label reps knew like, make sure I get all the stuff like the promos and things like that. But I mean, I love the album. It's, it's definitely it's got a maturity to it, but I also love the fact that there are some like kind of tongue in cheek sense of humor to parts of it. But, it was just like it was really a big deal. And I think it really catapulted Annie to like, very to a different like kind of level of like, pop stardom in a way. Even though like the album itself, the title is sort of a joke in a way for her, sort of saying like I'm not really, she doesn't feel like a diva even though people put her on that pedestal. Um, but I think it's a really really strong album, and it was a really strong solo debut from her.
Yeah, I feel like it. When you listen to Diva for the first time, and I remember listening to Diva for the first time, it's a completely different experience than your Eurythmics album. Like, you know, Jim's with me on the Blondie podcast, and I feel like a Blondie album and a Debbie Harry solo album, it's not two completely different universes in the way that Eurythmics and an Annie Lennox solo album are. Like, it's just two completely different feels and sounds. And Diva really, the first time I heard it, it really established what she is as a solo performer in her own right. And I feel like maybe on parts of Peace, you heard pieces of Annie solo because it's something they did later on. But Diva was just such an entity upon itself. All right, who would like to go next?
I want to follow up on your comment there,
Yeah,
Jeremy, about the Debbie Harry and the Blondie album, because Debbie actually said in an interview that if her solo albums had Blondie instead of Debbie Harry on it, they probably would have done better. And so she even realized that really there wasn't a humongous difference between her solo stuff and her stuff with Blondie.
right.
So
So
um,
did you say Debbie Harry said that if her solo albums had Blondie as the band, she thought they would have done better?
Yeah,
Well, that's interesting to me because I've always thought that if Dave and Annie had done Diva in the sense of created this album, because Annie wrote most of the lyrics for songs and did some of the music. So if they'd done it, I think it would not have been a hit. It could have been the exact same thing, but if Eurythmics' name was on it, it wouldn't have been a hit. It had to be Annie. It had to be this solo artist. It had to be her, in essence, recreating herself again.
right.
And I think she creates a new persona for this almost in the sense that it's directed. I think Savage was very much directed from a female standpoint. Even Dave talks about that. And of course, Diva, I think, comes from a very clearly female perspective. Len, you'll have to talk about that. You're the only woman in the room. But I think that's what changed for her. Because, and as Jeremy, as you said, there were people who discovered her somehow who didn't know who Eurythmics were or had forgotten who this was. And she really did create this moment. Although, if you go back to the Saturday Night Live performance where she debuted live to the American public and performed live, she was very much in a Eurythmics look. The tuxedo shirt and her hair was slicked back. It was still, even that was a very Eurythmics like look. But there is something about this. The first time I heard it, and I had a friend in LA, he hadn't had the album yet, and I had just got the album, and I don't remember now how I got the album at this point. But I'm listening to it, and it's like Jeremy said, why? You're like, we've never heard anything like that from a decade of Eurythmics. There was nothing like why. So you weren't really quite sure, well, what's that going to do? And then comes Walking on Broken Glass, and that's probably the most Eurythmics sounding piece to me on this album. And so me immediately knew, like, yeah, that's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of hope for this because you didn't know. We knew that Eurythmics had sort of maybe broken up in a way or disbanded or whatever. And so there was a lot of hope for this, for people who had followed them for a decade. And, yeah, so it was, you were hoping the best, but had no idea the success it was going to bring.
I think the magic of the album is the feminine energy that Annie
Mm-hmm.
brings right to the forefront. And Dave does bring a very masculine energy to the forefront. And Steven Lipson, the producer on this album, was a big collaborator with Annie, but I really feel like as a producer, he just went to the back seat and let her lead the way with the creativity more so than Dave could, because Dave was half the band. Like he's not gonna sit in the back seat and not lead. So I feel like had Dave done Diva with Annie, you're absolutely right, Mark. It wouldn't have been the same album because
Yeah.
it's the female empowerment. Because this kind of put Annie right up there, the '90s with the Lilith Fair and all the, Sinead O'Connor was out late '80s, early '90s. Tori, Alanis, and Annie was right there with all these. Sarah McLachlan.
It was the right time for her, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You're just that list of people you just mentioned. It was everything fell into place for her at this point. People were ready for this.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody else want to
My
go?
first,
So
well, my first experience was I was actually in California when I heard Why. I was in Tower Records, John, in near San Jose, I think, and I'm like, gosh, that sounds like the Eurythmics. It sounds like the Eurythmics, and I went and asked one of the sales reps there, and I said, what is this? And they said, well, this is Annie Lennox's new single, and so. I immediately had to pick it up, and I picked up the import version of it, and just played that single to death. Every song on it, and you knew when I got back from San Jose back here to Atlanta, I was just waiting every day for that album to come out so I could get it. And like Mark said, it is special because it is not Eurythmics. It is distinctly not Eurythmics, and I think that's why a lot of people thought that maybe this was a new artist because it was so much different from anything Eurythmics had done. But and just a real quick note, John, our paths probably crossed multiple times because I was at Tower Records in Atlanta a lot in the early '90s, so we probably have met and then just never
Aw.
realized it.
I was their alternative import buyer, so like it was pre-indie, but it was all the like independent label stuff and all the imports from Europe and Japan. So and all the import CD singles and 12-inch singles
Oh.
stuff.
That's
Allegedly, we had the best selection of like import dance stuff in the city.
So cool.
that's what I was looking for. So I know we've probably talked.
All right. Lynn, you had your hand up.
I did. You asked me. So I always tell you where I bought this. I bought this at HMV on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is where I lived then. And I don't remember playing it, but I remember hearing Why, and it was, I'd heard about the album, and it was so unusual because it was so direct. It had such a different sound. And I don't know if we're talking about Why right now, if I should have jumped ahead. But I recall that you saw this in everybody's Diva in everybody's apartment. Everywhere I went, everybody had this album in the '90s. Everybody. I mean, it's okay. I'm going to make a definitive. Everybody.
Everyone had it though.
And it was so weird because if you kind of lived with this as a teenager, as a lot of us did, my close friends all loved Eurythmics and that kind of thing. But most of the student body and stuff in school, it wasn't one of those things. So you always were sort of this kind of like the alternative music that people were listening to. They were listening to, the heavy, or the hair bands, the Motley Crue and all that jazz, but then suddenly the public is paying attention to Diva.
When you think about Eurythmics, the last time they had a huge hit in America was 1986 with Missionary Man, right? So when you think of pop culture, 5 years in pop culture, especially from the 86 to 92, that's 6 years. That's when grunge started coming out. So, I think people were looking for something really authentic at the time. And Annie definitely brought it with this album. And it had this it was synth work, but different than Sweet Dreams. It was kind of adult contemporary.
Oh, definitely adult contemporary.
Yeah, very understated, like very subtle. Just a whole nother thing. David, do you have a story to share about your diva-ness?
Okay, so not, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Not really, because those were the years that I mean, I bought it, I was anticipating it, but those were the years that my family calls the lost years because
Okay.
I was out there, you know, sowing some wild seeds, I guess.
Sure.
So specifics aren't real clear.
Let's show let's in honor of our friend Mike who couldn't be with us. Well, let's show our so I have the vinyl, of course, the original CD. I got that the little picture disc CD thing.
Oh,
Ooh.
well, show that again.
Because it
That's
has
the one
a,
with the feather.
I know it's
Yeah.
with the feather, and
Yeah,
that
I have that one.
I bought that in my local record store. That's when I knew, I think, something's going on, because Eurythmics never got anything special here, and you
right.
had this really special edition sitting there in every record store in the country. You know, with the feathers and all that. Yeah, yeah, it's so cool. That's
That
such a
has
cool. I
an
can't find mine.
interview disc with it, the feather
Yeah.
pack. This is the advanced promo CD,
Yeah.
which it looks, by all accounts, it looks the same as the commercial one. It has the barcode and stuff, and it just has a plain insert with no booklet. But the version of Little Bird on here is different than the commercial one. Pretty significantly different mix.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they ended up with the one they did. I like both of them, but it's definitely a different mix.
Yeah, I found that one too, and I don't, and Keep Young and Beautiful is different on one of them as well, and I
Yeah,
don't know which one it is. It's slightly longer, and it's the bridge that's a little bit longer.
I think
They
I
don't.
did a side by side time comparison a few months ago, and
Yeah.
there's different editions from different countries have slightly different time stamps.
You always wonder how that happens.
And just, for the record, on Spotify, it's not the original CD. It's the longer version of Little Bird on Spotify. Because I was listening to it today, I'm like, oh, so I wonder if the one you have is the one that's on Spotify.
It might be. I have to check, and I got to compare it against the Japanese one because it's got step by step added to it,
Right.
and the versions may be slightly different. Who knows? I have to check against the vinyl too.
So before we go into the track by track discussion, I really think we need to discuss the album cover artwork.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
as a reemergence as a solo art, Annie always dressed up. Love is a Stranger, Who's That Girl? But there is something different about this. And I also loved how understated the picture of her inside the album was. Just with the winter hat on, like the polar opposites. What do you guys think of this cover art and the campaign with all the artwork and stuff? I thought it was just beautiful and captivating.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very feminine.
No
Yeah.
one could have done it, and no one else could have done it. No one.
Right.
No.
I in a weird way, I draw a comparison to Savage with this album just because she was like playing it up. Like the album title is Diva, but I think at least even from interviews, it wasn't meant to be like, oh, I'm putting myself on this, echelon of like, it was almost like a sort of a bit of a joke.
Right.
And it was tongue in cheek, kind of.
That inside image, I think, came from, if I'm not mistaken, it came from like one time when she visited Russia.
Okay.
Perhaps. But the other thing, the artwork for it, I do remember when I worked at Tower that every store had its own in-house art department, and that would create those really cool displays. And they had gone all out for the Diva cover, so they had this 6-foot, foam core with feathers and everything, and it was like spot on. It was like so well done. I was like begging for it, but the artist kept
I missed Tower so much, and they were open till midnight.
Yeah.
Me too.
So, do you guys consider yourself equally Annie Lennox solo fans work as Eurythmics, or is it two whole different things? Because for me, there's times where I'm almost a bigger Annie Lennox solo fan and I love Eurythmics, but Does anyone have anything to say about that, or
My
I think
levels are about my levels are about the same for both of
about the same?
equal. Um, one thing I do really love about this album is the more I look at the credits on it, the more I kind of, and knowing who some of her musicians were in this band too, she really, I don't know how it came about, but she really picked some like top-notch musicians, especially the bass and drummers. I believe it's Keith LeBlanc and Doug Wimbish. They're actually really known for like both like hip hop and early hip hop. They were in the Sugar Hill Gang band as well as
them. Oh wow.
even some like early. I guess it was late '80s, so it might almost be considered like pre techno industrial. They're in a group called Tackhead. But if you look at their credits, like go to Discogs and kind of cross reference them, like they have like a really long history of you know artists that they've worked with, and even the producer, Steve Lipson. It's like he worked with like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and all these other artists. So
Was he with
it's
Pet Shop Boys at one point?
Pet Shop Boys, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to I didn't get a chance to answer which one, Eurythmics or Annie Lennox. I have two cats, and I love them both.
Yeah,
Maybe I mean, Mark, you have two dogs. How do you choose?
you can't choose.
You
'Cause
can't choose. Now, I'm a big Dave Stewart fan, so I could say probably I lean toward Eurythmics, but I love Annie's. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I think of a life without Why or I Love You Like a Ball and Chain. I can't have either world. Like I need them both in my life. So um well
I can choose. I choose the Eurythmics.
Yeah.
I like them a little. Don't get me wrong. I love the Annie Lennox, but Eurythmics a little better for me.
Yeah. There's a
well,
lot of
there wouldn't be
nostalgia
Annie
with
Lennox solo work without Eurythmics.
right.
absolutely, yeah, right.
Well, let's go into the track by track discussion. I remember the first time I heard Why, and I feel like a song like Why only comes around. How often does a song like that come around? Like only a few times in a lifetime. Because the amount of emoting that she does at the end of the song, and there's times in my life where I've felt devastated. And to have a song that you can listen to that's a release, like it is such a powerful song that was so unlike anything she did with Eurythmics. Her persona in Eurythmics was almost kind of like a little icy, a little detached. It was a character she was playing. But I feel like this one, she just ripped open her soul. It's weirdly because they almost called Diva and she's all made up in the cover, but she was weirdly more subtle and understated in this solo career musically. So there's a weird like juxtaposition in this song. Like I remember the first time I really listened to it because it was out there and I was like, oh, Annie Lennox has a song out. But then like I actually listened to the song and I was like, holy shit. Especially when you're like 19, how I would have been like 17, 18, 19, in love with a straight guy in the early 90s when you couldn't tell people you were gay. Like, so this song comes out that it just became my everything. I mean, if I had to list the most important songs of my life, I think Why would probably be on there. What did you guys think of this when you heard it?
Well, I
was
said something
mesmerizing.
earlier. I just wasn't sure what to think.
Right.
Yeah. It was mesmerizing for me because it was so much different. And you're right, Jeremy. It is one of those songs that's like kind of like a once in a lifetime song. I mean, it's like that generation, the '90s version of like It's a Wonderful World, or is it Etta James that did it last? Who did it last?
Right.
Those songs are powerful during those time periods, and even though Y was not as probably commercially successful as Wonderful World and At Last, it for our generation, it was as powerful.
Yeah.
For the people who really took the time to listen to it. So yeah, that song came to me, in a very pivotal moment in my life as well. And so there's a lot of memories there. The music behind it's wonderful. The story, the lyrics, and the story that the lyrics, tell are, just absolutely, wonderful. I mean, I'm looking at the lyrics right now. There was one line that just really is kind of haunting. Hold on one second. Why don't you keep your big mouth shut? That's why it hurts so bad to hear the words that keep falling from your mouth. And, it's just, you can see that, you can imagine that. And then when she goes through that, I may be mad, I may be blind, I may be viciously unkind, but I can still read your thinking. It's to me, it's like it doesn't matter how mad I am at you and how disgusted I am at you. I still know who you are, and I still know your habits and what you're going to do. So don't come back to me and tell me, I forgive, you're please forgive me, please, whatever, because I know where you are, I know who you are, and that's kind of like the power of the song, I think, is because it is
I
kind of saying that. Go ahead, Lynn. I'm sorry.
no, that's I interrupted you. Sorry. No, I totally agree. It just drew you in, and it told so much. And forgive me, as I'm the only woman here. I think it's a woman's song, really, to
Yeah.
me. Because all that was being, because it's got, like you mentioned, um, the the powerful thing. I mean, she's saying all that stuff, but do you know that's about Dave? That's the whole thing. And she said that, and Dave has said that. So then you can understand where I still know what you're thinking. Let's go down at the boat. That line, I forget that line too. Anyway,
I teach you see the
and that
place
was so when
sinking.
they did that in the peace tour, that was interesting because he accompanied her on Why. So
I didn't know it was about him.
yeah, he did say, yeah, she said that. They both said, well, Dave might say it out of ego, but she said it.
And I feel like, for Annie, the song's about Dave. But for me, the song's about Ryan. It's about Scott. It's about people I loved.
Oh, yeah, of
You know what I
course.
mean? And like everyone, like, Lynn, it's a woman's song. It's also a gay man song. Yes, it is. Because,
Okay. I have
um,
never been a gay man, so I'll take your word for it.
but like, so to talk about I never had a point where I was in the closet. I thought I was bisexual in high school. And then when I was 19, I got kicked out of my house. I lived on the streets for a while. And then I was in my own apartment for the first time. And I was writing one of my songs and I made the pronoun he. So I was writing a song about a he. I said, "Oh, I'm gay." Okay. And that was it. Like, I just realized I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's how it is." But, this album kind of predated that by a year. And for me, just as powerful as the song was this video. Because the video starts off with Annie, just very plain
Oh,
looking,
yeah.
and then little by little, she just emerges. And that was so reflective of what was happening in my life. Like, little by little, you just put on the war paint, you put on the fucking feathers, and then boom, there you are. And I just can't talk enough about how important this song was to me. I'm sorry for making a fool of myself a little bit.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's what music does for everyone. I mean, and I think that's why the song "Why" can be interpreted no matter who you are, or if you're a woman, if you're gay,
Right.
whatever, if you're
If you're
straight.
Straight.
not, if you're a
It's
straight
it's
guy.
it's your
Right.
experience, and
Yeah.
and this song is so emotive that it gets everybody. That's the miraculous thing that she did again with this album. And Jeremy, you talked about the video. So first of all, people, if you look back, people thought this was a pretty daring debut single for a solo artist. Again, we've all talked about it. It wasn't the usual, it wasn't, most people, they would have come out with some, kind of rocking or very poppy.
They would have
This
come
was
out.
different.
They would have
This
come
was
out with
totally,
"Walking on Broken Glass." That's what most
yeah,
people.
that would have made so much
Yep.
sense. But the video itself, the record company was, what are you doing? she wasn't speaking for the first 3/4 of the song, with the exception of when she mouthed "Big Mouth." If you
Right, big mouth shut.
well, I can't keep my big mouth shut. And that was a rather daring thing as well, because still, you got to keep people's attention with the video. And here she is being artistic in this video. And of course, she starts at that great conclusion with, with, and by the way, Lynn, I'd never heard her say that it was about Dave, but I did read where she said the conclusion, "This is the book I never read, these are the words I never said, etc., is more toward everyone who wanted to pinpoint her and put her in a little box.
Oh, yeah.
That this is who I am. This isn't what I am. This isn't what I am. And you don't know who I am." So I think there were a lot of things in but I thought that was really interesting. I just actually read that today, that she was saying, "No, you're still trying to put me in a box. I don't think so."
Interesting.
So,
I think that's great. Yeah, because
yeah,
of
isn't
course,
that interesting?
as writers take bits and pieces of all different parts of their story
And this,
and life.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Oh, but the single was huge around the world.
Oh,
Huge,
massive.
massive hit. And it only got to, what was it, 34 on the US Top 100. 34, her signature song. But it did get to 6 on adult contemporary. It did get to 12 on alternative airplay, whatever that is. That was a chart at the time. I don't know what that is. It'll pop back up. But it was such a massive hit around the world. And Billboard was writing about it, the editor of the magazine, and it was his column. And he was in London the week it was released, and he wrote about it, how you couldn't go anywhere that you didn't hear it. He was in the cab, and the cabbie was turning the volume up because Y came on the radio. That's how big it was.
Wow.
It was everywhere in New York, too.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I feel like this was like an anthem for, a word of the 90s was alternative, but all my alternative, like you said, everyone had to see. And let's not forget to mention, how daring it was to open the album with this song, too. Like, this song would be your typical closing track. You know what I mean? But, she opened the album with the song, and that set the tone for an entire solo career.
That piano grabs you, though, right?
Yeah.
The piano, it really does.
I have the CD single, then this one that has, a little interview disc on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This really kind of, just as much as Sweet Dreams became Eurythmic's signature, is really her signature, for lack of a better. I think she has equally strong songs from other albums, but, to the sort of radio listening public and stuff, it really became her signature song.
Now, a couple years ago, Joni Mitchell was playing at the Gorge up in Washington, and I went to the concert with all the Joni Mitchell Phonogenics people. We kind of the podcast is so all the little families, but the Joni Phonogenics family all went out to the concert. And there was 3 nights of the concert, and the first night was Brandi Carlile solo. And someone offered me a free ticket. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to see Brandi Carlile. But at the end of the show, Annie Lennox came out and did Y. And I'm like, fuck, man, I missed the opportunity to hear Y live in this beautiful gorge. So,
well, some trivia then. So, where did Y end up, Annie performing for a Joni Mitchell song?
Where?
This was just last year, I think.
The Gorge?
Well,
or Hollywood Bowl?
Annie performed Both Sides Now on what was it for? Was it?
Oh, I remember that.
Washington D.C.
Yep.
For the Joni
Library
Mitchell
of Congress or whatever.
Library of Congress thing.
The Gershwin Award.
Yeah, and she finishes singing Both Sides Now. And do you remember what she did? The last thing she said, "You don't know what I feel."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she talked about it later because she was so she was performing and she was doing this song and she was ending Both Sides Now. And she didn't know she was going to do it. Wow. But she ended up singing that signature final piece there from Why
That's cool.
as
That's
part
an
of that
artist.
song. And she had to talk about it later because we're like, well, you added you added something to it, and I always thought that was so fascinating that she, is performing who who she adores, like we do. I don't know if Annie realizes that, how we adore Annie.
Right.
Annie adores Joni Mitchell, and so she gets to perform this live song. And she somehow gets herself, and she
No.
just did it. It was
The
just
next night of the show, Annie did come out during the Joni set. Of course, I went to that show, and Annie came out and did "Ladies to the Canyon," her version from Medusa. So it was awesome. But like, I had to picture myself. I'm like, oh my god, I'm seeing Joni Mitchell on stage. Annie Lennox is right in front of me, and Wendy and Lisa are right there because I'm a huge Wendy and Lisa. So it was like, God, everything was just downhill from there. Like life just never will be that good as that moment.
Where was this, Jeremy?
The Gorge up in Washington.
You saw it in the Gorge concert.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't live that far from the Gorge. I'm sorry.
Oh. I wish
like
we would have
2
known
hours
each
away
other
from the
then.
Gorge. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I think aren't Wendy and Lisa producing Annie's new solo
Yep.
album?
And that's where they met, is at the Joni Jams. I
Like
think.
a collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, collaboration.
So that means
If
that we
get to
will
hear it.
Yeah, if we ever get to, but that means we will meet again when a new Annie Lennox album comes out. All right. Any other thoughts on Why?
I love the single cover just because she's like peeking up out of it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I think. It's like it's a very like polished. The whole presentation of the album and the production is really very polished, I think. But like, there's still these sort of like cute little, references, or not references, but just like kind of anecdote things. And I love like peeking up over the, it's almost like she's playing dress up.
Yeah. And I had to get that CD single because I think it has the instrumental version. I love just listening to the music.
It does, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Anniversary edition. Was this a promo or did this come out as as I don't remember. It's like a
I never saw
anniversary.
that.
That's just how big Diva was.
Right.
It had anniversary editions. Like the first year. That's how big the album was. I mean, and we didn't see that with, as big as Eurythmics were, and they were huge.
Right.
You didn't see that kind of stuff going on. But it was a different time.
I feel like these days everybody has an anniversary edition, like for every album. Like it's the 2-month anniversary edition. But like back in 91 or 92, that wasn't common. So that's a testament to the scope of the album. All right.
Yeah. Let's do an expanded version of this so we can hear all these, they collect all these different like versions of Little Bird and things like that. And all the B-sides and stuff that came with this album.
Well, God, her Spotify page was so sloppy. Like Diva was like under a compilation. I think they finally fixed it, but I'm like, man, curate your discography.
It's still there as a compilation. It's weird.
Oh Lord.
Diva needs a remastered reissue. They did the album. They reissued the album, the vinyl, and Medusa when they were doing all the Eurythmic stuff in 2018. But they didn't remaster them. I'm just like, her solo career does not get the respect it deserves from the record company. I'll just say that. Like that Diva did back in the day, but not today. But I don't think she pushes it either. So
what's funny, I have this little, it's like a counter display that they would put at the record stores, and on the promotional the underside of it, it says, her solo debut album, also available, Eurythmics Greatest Hits and We Tour One, because they were Arista. They were like, still trying to. And I mean, I think even some of the posters and stuff would say like the voice of Eurythmics.
The voice of Eurythmics, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eurythmics.
I think it's interesting. I'm sure the record company didn't know exactly how to promote this album, so they're like, well, we might as well push this single. But it's interesting that I feel like that's the last thing they needed to do.
I mean, they were really pretty heavy promoting it to like adult contemporary. I mean,
Well, I think they probably were doing that at some point with We Two Are One, trying to figure, okay, what's the audience for this now? So because we weren't teenagers anymore and that kind of thing. So it was, you tried to figure out, and I think We Two Are One was a very adult contemporary album, actually.
And
Sure.
certainly with the video for I can't even go. Oh,
Don't ask
the
me
video
why.
that's like David Lynch. I'm sorry.
Don't ask me why.
Don't ask me why.
The original why.
Yes.
Yeah.
A better one.
Well, yes, that's the way I said. There's 3 Y songs with them.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Jeremy.
Yeah. I like Don't Ask Me Why, but I don't love it. Like, it's not one of my favorites. All right. Any other thoughts on Why before we move on to the next song? All right, Walking on Broken Glass. So, I knew Why. I'm like, what's the rest of this album going to sound like? And the second this song comes in, you just know it's a hit. But
Absolutely.
you ever have something happens that kind of ruins a song for you? I went on a terrible date with somebody, and he was listening to the song in his car. He's like, "Oh, I sing the harmony," and he was fucking off the whole time with the harmony. So like, I was so embarrassed for him because I'm like, don't say you can sing the harmony when you're not on point. So like, I can't listen to this song without thinking of that cringy moment. So say you guys reinvent Walking on Broken Glass for me. Another thing is I like the album version better than the single edit. That's more common now. But I know that's just being a picky nerd with music.
Oh, I love the single edit. I'm disappointed it wasn't on the Annie Lennox collection.
Oh, okay.
I wanted like the single versions on the Annie Lennox collection. I like the little doodads or whatever they put through it. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, they did like add some ornament. It's such a pop hit. You know what I mean? Like, but it's still artistic in a way. So it's definitely not pop by the book. What do you guys think of this song? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I was in LA when this song day was released, and I don't know if it's Casey Kasem who was doing the top. I think it was the younger guy. Who was the younger guy that did the top 40? Does anybody remember?
No.
Rick D.
Rick Dees?
Maybe. But anyway,
Maybe.
so
Yeah,
they
I
had
think you're
just
right.
they'd just released Walking on Broken Glass, so it wasn't in the top 40 or anything yet. But they played it, and it was their choice for the week of the song that was most likely going to be number 1. Now that didn't happen. It reached 14 here, but it was on the adult contemporary chart for a year, so it was a massive hit. But so I remember that to this day, that it was, and the B-side for that was a studio version. John, remind me. It was one of the live songs she performed on the Unplugged. Do you remember?
Well, I mean, there's the U.S. single and there's the
the U.S. single. Yeah,
It's got 4 live tracks from MTV Unplugged.
right.
As It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back, River Deep, Mountain High, Here Comes the Rain Again, and the live version of Walking on Broken Glass.
There was another one. There was 2 issues here.
Don't
Maybe
let-
it might have been a promo, but anyway. So
Beatles
but-
cover, Don't Let Me.
Don't Let Me Down. Yeah, and she did a live version of it, but that's a studio version. And I will say the studio version doesn't match her live version. But I mean, Walking on Broken Glass, it's exactly what Jeremy said. I mean, you get to track 2 and you say, okay, that's the hit. If you were looking at it like, okay, how's this going to do? Because again, we were all terrified. Like, is it going to do well? Is she going to be a hit? And you could sort of tell.
Those opening notes of Walking on Broken Glass right after Why was, the energy went up.
Yeah. I mean, and it's such a great video. It's
a great video.
You can listen to the song anytime. It perplexed my wife at the time. She wasn't my wife at the time. We were just coworkers, but she knew I liked Annie Lennox, and she didn't really understand why I liked Annie Lennox. And she's like, I just don't get this song because the music's all happy and upbeat, but the lyrics are the total opposite. I don't get this. I'm like, yeah, that's what Annie Lennox does. Love is a Stranger, happy, a little toy piano at the beginning, and then pretty dark lyrics. So
Mark, I think that version of "Don't Let Me Down" was on might have been an import single of "Walking on Broken
okay,
Glass." I have it. It's boxed up downstairs, but it came with like a little like a spiral notebook ring around the top of it, and you flipped it open, I believe, or might have been to the side, but
Uh, this
yes,
is
that's it.
so this one has "Legend in My Living Room" as the B side, as this, as the
Maybe
second.
there's
So it was
maybe there's a different version.
I,
this is the American with the MTV Unplugged tracks, and this is the European single with "Legend in My Living Room" and "Don't Let Me Down."
again, you
Oh,
go
maybe
back
that's the
to
one.
there's so much going on. I mean, they were releasing everything all over the place for this album. I mean, this was such a massive hit around the world, and there's so much stuff. All of this, just amazing. But I think it's her. Her biggest hit from this here in the U.S. Um, and like I said, it was on the adult contemporaries chart for a year. I mean,
Right.
just insane. And is it a song that you still hear today? On if there's such a thing as radio. I remember. I have this story. I remember listening to a local radio station, and it was a female DJ, and really one of the big DJs at this radio station. And she's playing. Oh, I'm sorry. It was about why, but anyway, she's playing why, and she starts talking over the end. This is how I feel and all that stuff. You know how they would talk during the outro of a song, and I wanted to call her up and say, no, you don't do that. But it
Yeah.
wasn't Broken Glass. Sorry, I got confused. Someone else talked. I've been talking.
I
Oh,
remember hearing broken glass in an elevator.
no.
But
And I thought, oh, kill me now.
you mean elevator music?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. About 50, I'm going, oh God.
but is that when a song's made it, when it's been turned into
Yes, I
music?
guess so. Yeah. That and you hear it at Target or something.
Well, someone talk
Yeah.
about the video with John
Yes,
Malkovich
yes, with
and Hugh
what
Laurie,
dangerous
And Hugh
liaisons.
Laurie and
It was perfect.
so great.
Annie and the Red.
I love when she starts taking the drinks and she
Yeah.
gets the courage, and then she like clears the room on her way to him. I love that part.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I definitely remember this song being like the hit. Like I loved Why, but this was the song that was on the radio all the time and was all over the place.
And why do you think, though, too, that it only got to 14 on the top 100? It was bigger because again, they expected it to, but that kind of shocked me. And I guess I knew it, but when I looked up some stuff for the podcast, and I would have, if you'd asked me, I would have said, oh, I think it got to 11, maybe 10, but it's 14. And
I
it
think
was,
that's all right.
oh,
That's
it
good.
is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, you kind of think it was, everybody was playing it, and so you kind of, in your mind, you think, but chart positions, even at the top,
What came out that year that it was up again? I mean,
I don't know. Don't
yeah.
ask me.
SWV, all that, like, wasn't that like Boys to Men and all that kind of stuff? New Jack Swing.
But it
I
must have
don't know.
got,
I know she lost the Grammy to Bonnie Raitt, right, for that one song she had, and I didn't think that was right. I mean, it was a good song and stuff, and I was happy for Bonnie Raitt, and nothing to take away from her. "Keep This Heart of Mine," I think, was the song or something like
Well, I
that.
feel like Bonnie Raitt swept the Grammys in '89 with Nick of Time. Like, let's move on now. Because the album that Bonnie Raitt would have had out in '92 would have been. I didn't mean for you to move on. I meant like the Grammy should have moved on from Bonnie Raitt. Because by that was Luck of the Draw the album that Bonnie Raitt had out then. It wasn't. It was.
You know what? I don't remember. I just remember the single. But I think my point is, and the Grammys too, because when I think of Diva, I also think of the video album.
Oh, yep.
they go together. It's just this huge, work of art, that she did, and what a great thing to give, the Eurythmics fans, right? That were
Yeah.
still anticipating this, And what you said, Jeremy, earlier about, that people discovered Annie Lennox first. How fun for them to like discover the
Oh, yeah.
Eurythmics afterwards, Anyway.
Well, and you mentioned the Grammys. We should mention that Diva was nominated for Album of the Year, Pop Vocal Album of the Year, and Long Form Video. And Long Form Video won. So that was Annie's first solo Grammy. The album did not win Album of the Year or Pop Vocal Album of the Year, but that's quite amazing too.
Man.
Eurythmics were never nominated for Album of the Year at a Grammys, so and I remember someone wrote that she was the dark horse, that she might win, but she was the dark horse that could possibly win and shake things up. So wouldn't that have been something?
I mean, thinking of the 90s, and I'm thinking of bands that had a person go solo and then their solo career was equally impactful. And I thought of somebody, and you guys are probably gonna be like, oh no. But to me, Natalie Merchant's solo career is a whole different thing than 10,000 Maniacs. And I love them both. But that's
I love them
another
both
band.
too.
Yep. Like, love Natalie, love 10,000 Maniacs, but it's two whole different things.
I thought you were going to say Diana Ross.
But I feel like Tiger Lily's a lot like Diva in that it's so understated and it's a reinvention of a sound. So I guess that's for another podcast series. Anyway, any other thoughts on Walking on Broken Glass?
I still
We're
love
just looking up what's the song of the year was. And it was Eric Clapton for Tears in Heaven. So I think that was as much for the song, but I think people were feeling him because of what that was inspired by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we got to give that to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say it. I saw Eric Clapton in concert. It was the most boring concert I've ever been to in my life.
It was great.
No, I was so bored.
And also, Constant Craving was up that year.
Yeah.
Well, we love a little KD, don't we?
That's a great song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
That's the only Katie Layton song I know, to be honest with you. All right. Track 3, Precious. Now, the Eurythmics had a song called Precious, right? So,
B-side.
a B-side. Did anybody, when they saw the track list, wonder if it was the same song, or did everyone know it was going to be its own thing?
I knew it was
Wondered if it was the same.
Like when Madonna came out with Confessions on a Dance Floor and had Forbidden Love, I'm like, oh, is she doing Forbidden Love from Bedtime Story? But nope, it's a different song. Precious has that 90s kind of, definitely a very 90s beat, that kind of groove, that bass line, very 92. I love this song. What do you guys think of Precious?
I love it. I love the way she dances in the video.
Yeah, I love that video. I think I love the video more than the song even. I mean, I just love that video. It's such a cool song. I like the single edit of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. And it doesn't make sense to me because she had a video to every song but one on that album.
Right.
And this was a single in Europe and all else around the world. It was never a single here. And what do you think the point of that is? Here's a 12-inch from Germany. I think it's the only place there was a 12-inch of Precious. But I don't know. I don't quite understand why record labels, you've already paid for the video. It's go back to When Tomorrow Comes was never released here. They released 2 things from Revenge in the U.S. They had a video to it. They had a video to the Miracle of Love even. What if it just got to 80 or 75? If you look at, there's all these great Facebook pages that have, they'll have the charts from, 40 years ago and 30. I love following those. And it's great. They always show the bottom 20. There were bands releasing 4 or 5 singles. So what was the point?
I bumped something, you guys. I'm sorry.
You're still there.
Shoot
Oh,
me.
wait.
Oh,
Tell us.
there we go. All right. Any other thoughts on Precious?
Oh my God. This is my husband's computer and it's going nuts. Oh, I have a husband now.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's right. You did. Yeah, that's right. Congratulations.
I love it.
You. Thank you. To me, this is the Precious was an adoring new mother song. That was
Yeah,
what it was, start to finish. And she certainly deserved that because her first, child.
Yeah.
Right.
Was, yeah. So it's the perfect new mom song.
Wasn't the video? Is the video for it? She was still pregnant.
No, that was
Little Bird. But I
Little
thought
Bird, she was pregnant with Tolly.
Holly. Yeah.
so. Because the album is dedicated to Lola and Yuri. For some reason, I thought the video for Precious, she was, or maybe she had already had Lola.
I think she'd
Right.
had. Yeah.
I love the video for it too. I mean, in the album and the single cover too is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. The juxtaposition in the video, the black and white, she's hunched down, almost like the monkey from the Wizard of Oz, the evil monkeys, and then the angel. The juxtaposition in it is so much fun. And you go back to what you said, Lynn, that it's basically a love song for her daughter. And again, I don't understand why Arista didn't release that here, because I think it would have again gone to a very feminine, a very moms. I think it would have spoken to a lot of people. And again, even if it wasn't a giant hit or something, you've already spent the money. You've already got this video. Why not release it? It didn't make sense to me. But it's the least. It's not a huge hit, but I thought it was a great song.
Right. Any other thoughts?
Especially when you think of who the artist is and how visually, like fascinating she is. Sorry about that, Jeremy.
Oh no, go ahead. I only got a little bit of sleep last night because my electricity went off, so I feel like my timing's a little off. So feel free to nudge me around, you guys. It's all good. Mark,
what's the B-side? Step
by step.
Step by step.
Well, let's talk about that now since we're here. Step by step. When you heard the new Whitney Houston single, were you shocked that it was an Annie Lennox B-side?
No.
Yeah.
I think she wrote it. Between her and Clive Davis and and Whitney, I don't know if someone might correct me, but I thought she wrote it for Whitney.
Well,
I thought
she changed the lyrics. She changed the lyrics, and they're still credited to her, so it's still Annie Lennox's lyrics.
Right.
So, and she does the backing vocals.
Yeah, you can hear her on the single.
Yeah. With Clive Davis, I'm surprised it wasn't a duet, a complete duet for that. Maybe it had to do with the soundtrack, but that would have. And there's some countries where the single was released as Whitney Houston and Annie Lennox.
Interesting.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But I think that's pretty rare. But that would have been just because they were his two of his signature female artists. Maybe Annie was like, no, she can have it, kind of thing. But I do have to say I like Whitney Houston's version. I have to say that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I was never a big Whitney Houston fan at all. But I thought she did a great job with that. And there's a single remix too, that I think is a favorite. But I have a very he's a friend, and he's 20 years younger than I am. And he was like, "Oh, you got to hear this song." And it was Step by Step by Whitney Houston. I'm like, and this was several years later, and I'm like,
right.
Yeah, that's Annie Lennox in the background. She wrote that song. And of course, he knows my. And then he was playing the Nicki Minaj song where she samples "No More I Love Yous" from Medusa. I'm like, yeah, that's Annie Lennox.
Yeah,
you got to teach these people, you see.
Yep. Did you I feel like she made the right choice on not putting Step by Step on Diva. It didn't feel like a Diva song to me.
Oh, I just love Step by Step from her, though.
I do.
I love that song. But maybe it didn't fit. I can see that. But I do love the song. It's probably one of my favorite songs. What does anyone else think?
I agree with Jeremy. I think it was a good decision to put it on Diva. I think it would have messed with the composition of Diva.
Yeah, Diva has a flow, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts? Moving on. All right, Legend in My Living Room. I remember the first time I heard this, just comes in with that beat, and then the chorus is big. You have that bridge that's kind of weird. This is another one of those songs that was just kind of love at first sight for me. Annie's kind of telling her story there. A classic Annie Lennox hook in the chorus, I feel like.
Yeah.
She's really pulling out some of her more like weird vocalization techniques that we haven't heard in a while. The come on sisters, like it felt good to hear, a little funky. Great track. What do you guys think?
Oh, I love this
Perfect.
song. Yeah.
And another one, that was the second song she did on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So it was that and why introduced America to Diva. And I think it could have been a single too.
Yep, that's another one.
A great video. The video for it is fantastic.
Yep, with the cane, which is
the cane, and very Marlene Dietrich.
Yep, very Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah, yeah. Annie plays a great character, whatever character she's playing.
All right, further thoughts.
It's just I love that song.
It's interesting because albums like this, a lot of times there's not a lot to say because the album speaks for itself. Like it's just such an experience that all I can really say is like, I fucking love it. Like I love the album. Like I don't have a lot to say because I just love it.
Well, it's interesting that she's pretty like succinctly telling kind of her story, even though as Eurythmics fans, like we knew, she moved to London when she was 17, and that theme comes up again, even in 17 again. But it's like, it's almost like, it's almost like she's documenting it again,
right?
But it's sort of being presented in a different way. And she's definitely like, it's a funk track, like the bass and everything is, it really, I never really thought of like Annie as R&B, but in many ways the album has touches of R&B in it.
Yeah.
Production wise and everything. But I think it's a very fitting song for this record.
When I looked it up today, it had Diva under pop, a genre pop, and then soul. I don't know if I agree, but
no one but Annie Lennox can come up with lyrics like, "But I've shed my tears in bitter drops until the thorn trees bloomed to take the spiky fruit to crown myself the queen of doom."
Yeah.
I mean, and when she and Sting did the tour together, the Sacred Love tour, I thought it should have been called the King of Pain and Queen of Doom tour.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Okay, yeah.
And I feel like Annie really showed some of her darker poetic sides on this album more clearly than we had ever seen them.
Well, I think it was a bit more personal album, wasn't it? And when she's talking in Legend in My Living Room about when I was 17, I ran away from home. I think 17 means so much to her because I think it was her second birth. I mean, she got out of Scotland. It wasn't perfect like she thought it was going to be, and it took her a long time to find who she was. But, we all have those. Jeremy, you've talked about those just tonight. Your pivotal moment.
Yep, your formative years.
Formative years, and it clearly still resonates with her.
I identified a lot with this song because I moved to New York when I was 19. So the bright lights and trains and bedsit stains and pavements paved to gold, I believed in everything that everybody told me. Yeah, that's what it was me at 19 moving to New York from California. So it is very...
All right. Any other thoughts on this one?
evocative for me.
All right. Well, side one ends with a ballad, Cold, which of course all of us have the cold, colder, coldest, right? The CD singles.
Yes.
The little box set.
John, did you order these in your import?
I had them. Yeah, I had them. I tried the little box set. I never found the box set, but
Oh, this one? Oh.
yeah, little mini box. But yeah, this was. I mean, granted, having the same version on 3 singles was a little like okay, but I do like the how they marketed it and presented it.
Was disappointing about the release, John, is that you did not get any variation of the song. It was the same exact,
Right.
cold track code. Of course, you had different, additional tracks that each one was cool, but
they're all
it would have
live
been nice
tracks,
to
right,
see.
from the Unplugged.
Yeah.
Although that was such a thing, like in the early '90s and well, the '90s and the 2000s. This whole like part 1 and 2 CD singles and
Hated that.
labels milking their fans.
Yep.
Yes.
But weren't we happy to let them milk us?
Yeah.
We bought
Yeah.
everything they put out. Here's a little promo for it, a little promo stand
Oh, that's cute.
for the.
Cool.
Is that from Europe? That must
Most likely England or somewhere. Yes. Again, I bought all this stuff so long ago, I don't remember now.
And it wasn't a single in the U.S.
No, again, it could have been. Although the videos, she's kind of dressed to.
I mean, lyrically, it's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. And
Right.
I mean, I can never get enough of her saying dying is easy, it's living that scares me to death. I mean, like,
So soulful. The song is just very soulful.
Yeah.
The lyrics just get me every time I
And
hear
she's
them.
very like front and center in it, like
Yes.
her and her emotion are right there. And I think in like my early albums that I did, like there's so many moments I was ripping off Diva. Like I was thinking back, I'm like, oh, I ripped off that production. I ripped off that. I ripped off like this is such an influential album for me. And, the music just kind of stays subtle the whole time. It's completely her voice that emotes.
Don't you think, John? You mentioned it, but dying is easy. That's living that scares me. Don't you think that's almost a signature line from here that a lot of people refer back to? It's so good, and you remember it. It's just so great.
like every time I hear it, I get a little bit of a chill. Really,
Cold. It's a perfectly written song. It really
Absolutely.
is. Maybe it didn't do all that well as a single, despite having multiple issues there in England. But then by the time it was released to, and I think that's probably why they had 3 different versions of it, try to push it. But that's a great song live too. She's performed it really well live many times on her tours, and it's one that stops the show and everybody's in awe.
Right.
Either she's at the piano or whatever she's at. You stop and listen when she's performing that song.
I love there's in the part of the song where she's I want to be with you, baby. Slip me inside of your heart. The production on that, like where you it's almost like there's a little bit of like backmasking, and it's like the crescendo of the song.
Oh yeah, yep.
Like, it's very like cool, the production of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
John, you're wearing your diva pin.
Low ballady song, and then it gets this
look.
like, intense sort of intensity to it. It's really.
All right. Any other thoughts on Cold? All right,
my thought is whenever I listen to this album, and maybe this is the bridge to the next song, is like I always find the transition between Cold to the next song is like really weird. It's like very abrupt, and like it just sort of starts.
Right.
Am I thinking of the right
Well, this is
Money
where
can't buy it.
if you had the vinyl, this is where you flip over the album. So I always thought of this as like the end of side one going into side two. And yep, the next song is Money Can't Buy It, which to
Yeah,
me,
so it's weird when you listen to I guess on the CD or even on streaming, like the timing of it is like there's no break, there's
there's
no
no break. Yeah, it comes right in.
notes right there. And I thought that was a really interesting choice to, you know, it almost sounds like did they mean to do that? I'm not really sure.
I wonder if it's just laziness because well, no, because when you're mastering for a CD, you know it's not going to be a side one and side two, so there should be some space at the end of the track. Huh.
It is a weird transition.
I'm going to have to go listen to it now, John.
Yeah.
Well, Money Can't Buy It. I mean, talk about a song that just starts small and gets huge.
Exactly.
And Annie raps.
Oh yeah, this is American Life before American Life was a thing.
Yeah.
This song is such a journey for me. To me, this is one of the centerpieces of the album. There's the weird sections. You go through every emotion. I love this song. This might be next to Why my favorite song on the album. And what a sentiment, especially in this like shallow commercial world. This is like the antidote to all that shit. Don't you know that money can't buy? And I like the video. That's where it has like the fog on the mirror, right? And she's
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
And she looks at you. Sometimes she's looking at you through the mirror, and sometimes she's looking at you, like from, I don't know. I was tripping on the video today, but this is my favorite song on this album. I love this. I love this song.
It's one of mine too.
And the
The
song,
the live version of this from the Central Park concert is really, really good too.
I feel like the verses are so badass, but then comes the chorus. Like, I believe that love alone can do those. Like, what a great and like majestic chorus. Like, this song takes me there. It just, I don't know what else to say. It takes me there.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
The emphasis, and even in the lyric book, the emphasis, like I got diamonds, like it's in all caps. It's just like, and I just love the structure of like her, like I got so many that I can't close my safe at night.
Yeah,
So like
living in a sick dream.
Yeah.
And she doesn't say, and let me say, she says, let me amplify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
who else could do a rich white girl rap? No one else would have done that. No one else would have done that. She was daring to just do it, and it's the best part of the song. Because you're right. It builds so slow in the beginning, and it's building and it's building and it's building, and then she gets to this crescendo of it.
Yeah.
It's so good. Could it have been a single? Could it have been a single?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
hell yeah.
That would be great. Yeah.
I think it could have been, but I'm glad it's not because I feel like it's mine. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like selfish. Like, I want to keep the song to myself.
But
I also like there's sort of I mean, at least whenever I hear her say the word, I'm a rich white girl. Like, I think of the first cut because she's
a white girl.
Yeah. Yeah. She's very aware of who she is and the distinction that she's created. I think this album is very much like Be Yourself Tonight that I go back to. Every track could have been a single.
Yeah.
Every song on this album could have been a single. That doesn't mean they were all going to be potential number ones or anything, but every song on this album could have been released and found an audience somewhere without any doubt.
And it's interesting, as big as the song gets, then it ends small again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's a masterpiece.
And Entertainment Weekly, by the way, in referring to this song, called Diva a wilted piece of lettuce.
Oh,
Yes, and I forget. And she was she also reviewed Medusa and didn't like it.
oh.
One of the female reviewers, and I'm forgetting her name now. I've got it somewhere, but a wilted piece of lettuce. she was probably one of the few people in the world who didn't understand that Diva was brilliant.
Right.
Because most of the reviews were incredible.
They forgot her name, so
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Like Mariah says, I don't know her. All right. Well, just like side one opens with an epic song, and then track two is the hit. So I remember the first time I heard Little Bird, like those synthesizers come in, I just knew it was like it's a song that you know is a hit the first time you heard it. And damned if I didn't see many a drag queen do this song back in 92, 93. Of course, the video with Annie revisiting some of her iconic selves. And I hadn't heard this song in a while. When I was listening to it today, I'm like, it retains its power. It's a great pop song, but it's intelligent enough. You know, I love Little Bird. What do you guys think of this one?
I loved it from the very day one.
Yep.
Thought this was fantastic.
You hear that ding, 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 and that's it? Like, oh.
And then months later, you see the video and you're just in heaven.
Right.
With her different, you know, she's very, very pregnant. And so they were, she and Sophie Muller, how are we going to do this? And well, wouldn't it be funny if we just got impersonators? And then like, well, why not? I mean, one of the best videos ever done.
Yep.
Just hilarious. My mother is watching it and cracking up the whole time. You know, everybody in the family is watching it, and it's just hilarious. It's so good.
And how many of you
the dancing they do on the chairs too? I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun video. It's so great. You know, and it didn't end up, you know, they had the Diva long form video, and then Totally Diva was released, and they added Broken Glass and whatever. But Little Bird never made it on to a video album.
Only the instrumental during the closing credits.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Because I always think of that when I hear that instrumental, I just think of the closing credits because it's so tied into that with my memory.
It's weird because they released Diva on VHS and then they released it again as Totally
Yeah.
Which doesn't have different tracks than the original VHS.
It has Broken Glass wasn't on the original.
Right. It still left Little Bird off, which is really weird.
Yeah.
Well, it hadn't been recorded yet. So again, you kind of go back to, they were making so much money. The record label was like, okay, we got to do this. We got to do this. And still there was another song that, you know, was, and we should say that Little Bird was released as a double A side in England and also the B side with Love Song for a Vampire.
And should we talk about that now since we're at that?
Yeah. I mean, it's because it was released as a double single. So, and got to number 3 in England.
Now, and, I will say that Love Song for a Vampire is very close to Why as far as being a song of emotional impact for me. I mean, when I heard that song, it's devastating. And I know it's about Dracula, but I mean, it's also about being in love and broken. Like, what a majestic piece of music. What do you guys think of Love Song for a Vampire?
Well, love it. Very haunting. Very haunting.
I think it should have got an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And her look too. Like the video and she did a live, I believe it was the Top of the Pops appearance for it, where she was in like the black, you know, her goth look.
Yeah.
Something that you should, well, just to mention about Little Bird is that not that long after it was released, it ended up getting sampled by Utah Saints.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, something like a song that's that sample worthy, not that long after it comes out.
Sure.
And then they ended up, you know, doing the remixes for it, or some of the remixes.
Mm-hmm.
And Enjoy, they were a big techno act on Arista in Europe.
And they also sampled There Must Be an Angel, right? Because in the...
They did.
Yeah.
Little Bird and There Must Be an Angel and Kate Bush on another song.
I wanted to show this. This was, Annie signed it in Nashville to me, but it's a Love Song for a Vampire CD single, but it was released in France. France issued Diva again, and with this single.
Oh,
So it was kind of
Oh,
like
cool.
together. And when we handed it to Annie after the Nashville show, her solo show, to sign, her assistant took it and said, "Well, where did you get this?" Because they had never seen it before. They had never seen
oh,
it. So,
wow.
Wow.
but a love song means a lot to me because my wife walked down the aisle to it.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, great.
we were trying to find something. We weren't we didn't want to have a, it had to be all about us.
Sure.
And so we were trying to find something that would work, that meant something. And it's such a great, it's got these moments to it. There's part of it that's kind of a march, so
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing, we had all these candles and all these things, and people came in at different times, and the doors opened to reveal Amy, the bride, and the back doors opened at the crescendo for the final verse.
Oh,
And
lovely.
it was so, it's, and oh, and our wedding rings have lyrics from it. Mine
Oh,
has "For There Is in All the World," and then it completes it on Amy's, "No Greater Love Than Mine."
Mark, you're bringing tears to my eyes with this.
Oh,
But I feel like Love Song for a Vampire is one of Annie Lennox's signature songs that no
Yeah.
one's talking about now. And they need to talk about this song because to me, it's right up. Songwriting doesn't get any better than this song. Like,
yeah.
it's so good. And I love that was your wedding. I mean, there's no more romantic song to walk down the aisle to.
No, it's great.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Well, when she got close to, we're down the aisle, and I whispered to her, where she's singing about the stars, and she said, "They shine for you." So I whispered to Amy, "They shine for you," but people thought I was whispering, "I love you,"
Oh,
because someone said that to us afterward. I'm like, and I didn't tell them, but no, it was "They shine for you." But it is such, and I would love to see, as John said, she did perform it live on Top of the Pops, and I think that's the only live performance ever. I would just die. I just love if she performed it live sometime.
I mean,
And I
this
don't
song.
even know if she understands that. I don't know if she even understands how a lot of us really, because beyond my very personal story to that, it's like you said, Jeremy, and other people. It's a perfect song. It's so beautiful,
Right.
and it should have been nominated for an Oscar. But I don't think Annie liked the movie very much. So um,
I feel like the TikTok generation, like they have to rediscover the song and give it the life that it deserves. Because just like Dracula, like keep this song around forever because it's timeless.
I
It's unforgettable, and I've always circled back to it throughout the years. It's one of those songs, It's beautiful.
So in San Francisco, there used to be a drag club. It was like a weekly at a club called Tranny Shack. It eventually became known as Mother. She changed the Heclina was the host of the show, and she changed it just to be a little more sensitive. But she used to do these theme nights, and she did a Eurythmics Annie night and borrowed some posters and stuff from me for props. But one of the performances was Love Song for a Vampire, and it was done by this drag queen and designer named Glamour, and he did the like Dracula as the old Dracula with the the white hair buns and stuff.
Oh,
And it was such an amazing performance because like he did this, it's a little morbid, but he like hung himself as Dracula, as sort of like his I mean, because it's such a like devastatingly like, romantic song. So it really like kind of wowed the audience a lot because
Yeah.
it was so dramatic, and his makeup was like spot on, but it was such a, yeah.
I just remember my friend Linda Tat. She's like, "Did you hear the new Annie Lennox song from Dracula?" Like she heard the song before I did, and this is when I was like totally in love with this guy, this Drake. And then there's that whole era, and then I just remember listening to the song alone in my bedroom and just crying and feeling a lot of things. But I feel like I'm a big Lana Del Rey fan, and her music a lot of times is really cinematic. I'm like, I'd love to see her like do a little love song for a vampire. No one could do it as
Love
good as
Song's
Annie
got
though.
a lot of covers over the years too, and most of them I don't really like. But a few years ago, a country artist, and he's quite well known, but Colin Ray did a cover of it, and I posted on one of the Eurythmics boards. And I think I was one of the few people who actually liked it, but I thought he did actually a really good job with it, and it was interesting to have a man singing it.
And I think it's a hard song to sing. Like there's a whole octave jump there, and
Mm,
maybe that's why she didn't do it live a lot because it's a hard song.
yeah, well, true. No, I think they're right on that. But I mean, just think about this. It's at the end of Diva. Little Bird is the fifth single in Europe, the third single here. She has this, she's been selected to sing. And, back in the day, you know, there was the song for a movie, and it was a big deal. Whoever was going to get the
Right.
song and that was a huge movie, of course. Oh, and we all went to see it. All my coworkers at the time, and of course they were like, "Well, let's go," and I'm like, "No, we have to wait to hear Annie Lennox's song."
Oh, yep.
But I mean, you had Little Bird, where she's got all her personas, Sweet Dreams, There Must Be an Angel, even her persona, if you want to put it that way, from the Freddie Mercury concert. So you have this great video, this great song, and she's got Love Song for a Vampire. That it didn't end with this album. I mean, just the marketing of it, and it you.
Well, the
It's
song was
hard
the
to
best part of.
remember now how big it was.
Yeah.
What did you say, Lynn?
I was going to say the song was the best part of Dracula for me.
Sure.
I
I
went
could
to
have
go
gone
see
in,
it
in the
too.
last 10 minutes and just watched the movie, or just watch the credits for the song.
Yeah.
Hearing
I
it in
saw
the
it too. I think it made me jump a couple of times. It had a couple of good special effects, but yeah, it's all about the song.
Yep, hearing it over the theater speakers.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on Love Song for a Vampire?
Or Little Bird.
Or Little Bird Bowl. Oh, I mean, this discussion is just great song after great song after. Lynn, no filler here, baby. All killer, no filler.
Well, maybe, okay.
Well, that's true. We still have a few to go. All right.
Wait, I
Primitive.
will say this, Jeremy. Let me
Yeah.
just say this because this time, just as a little, extra fun, I sent all the singles to my mom except for Cold, and I sent her Money Can't Buy It, and I sent her Love Songs, Love Song for a Vampire, right?
Mhm.
So her biggest rave, so it's appropriate I say it now, her biggest rave was about Little Bird because she was really into the backup vocals. And that
Oh.
reminds me too, because the backup vocals are like, who's the deep voice? Is that her?
Waited on the ground. That was so great.
Jeremy. It's so good. And her other one was Love Song for a Vampire. So, my mom.
So when you guys
Now,
listen to
Jeremy,
Little,
I have to say,
everybody.
I'm not the one who said songs were filler back.
oh, I know it drove you crazy a little bit. You're like,
It did. Now, I just have to jump in and say, since I'm a newlywed, I came in to Here Comes the Sun by George Harrison.
oh.
Oh.
Now I want to take a poll of my
That's beautiful.
Phonogenics panel here. When you're listening to Little Bird in the car, how many people sing all the background parts? Because I sure as hell do.
Me.
Sing the wet part.
All the background vocal parts.
Background parts.
Yes.
This is me today. Waiting on the ground.
Well,
That's great.
it's a testament again to her confidence in herself and her songwriting that she's got all this call and response.
I do
that
the woohoo
she do
parts
it.
of
Yeah.
Little Bird.
And didn't she bring out that deep voice that somewhere on the Sweet Dreams album? Wasn't it in there? So I feel like we haven't heard that voice in a while from Annie.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, on the Eurythmics stuff, sometimes I would think it was Dave,
Okay.
but I think it was sometimes her too. You know, they
Yeah.
just slow it down. But you know, yeah, Little Birds never really. I've never stopped loving it.
Nope.
It's one of those songs that I could have played it to death, but I turn it up loud when it comes on my stereo.
Now I'm so used to that original shorter album version because that's what's on the CD that it bothers me on Spotify. It's that longer edit because I'm like, I want the original. I'm a purist. Like I want to hear it
Well,
like I did.
but my favorite version is the video version where it starts with "woohoo."
Yeah, I mean that is a good version.
Yeah.
All the
That's what I
single
do,
versions.
the woohoos.
Yeah. All right. Primitive.
Seriously, that's what I do.
We're all gonna be in the car doing all the little parts.
We should all get in the car together and sing this.
So okay, I'm gonna go a little off topic, but I'm allowed to. The true litmus test when I meet somebody new is I play the Little Lies by Fleetwood Mac. When it gets to the chorus, it says so much about someone if they take the Stevie, the Christine, or the Lindsay line. So, like, are they gonna be the "Tell me lies" or the "Tell me lies" or the "Tell me"? Like, which one are they? All right,
I'm the Stevie.
I'm the
I don't
Stevie.
know what that says about me.
But I feel like we could do that with Little Bird too. Would they be the woohoos or the waiting on the ground? All right, back to reality. Primitive, just like it's one of those songs that just kind of trods along. It's all atmosphere. It's all vibe. There's some
You don't trod, you float.
you float. Yeah, you're right. You float.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ethereal.
It's ethereal. You got the congas or the bongos, whatever it is. A little like Middle Eastern flair. I loved the song the first time I heard it. I love it now. I mean, once again, nothing like this on any of the Eurythmics albums. This is Annie doing Annie solo. It's just so ethereal and so beautiful.
I love ashes to ashes, rust to rust. This is what becomes.
This is what becomes of us.
And it is such a different song because, you know, she only says primitive once near the very beginning. You know, there's no chorus that she's going back to primitive, you know,
Right.
saying, and it is. I loved how you all described it, you know, floating, you know, I was listening to it earlier and it's maybe the song from Diva that you sort of like forget, that you don't remember, but it's always when you discover it again, when you go back to it, and you're like, that's really, really good.
Right. Because some of these are like big songs that are like super emotional or super catchy or super in your face.
Right.
And this one's just floating on the breeze.
Yeah.
All vibe.
Yeah, you're so right. There's so many big songs on Diva. So many, you know, with different vibes and stuff. And here's this slow song, and it's, again, very emotive. We keep,
Right.
I think, using that.
I feel like a lot of times after big songs, you can be like, that's a palate cleanser. But I think Primitive is too good to be a palate cleanser. It's just as important as the other songs, but just a total switch of gears.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else want to add anything about this one? I don't have a lot to say about it because it's just all feeling for me.
I
couldn't
think
said
this
it
was
better.
on one of the. I think this was on one of the Y singles, wasn't it? Like the B side of.
Yeah, I
or
think
the
you're
second
right.
track.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm trying to find one.
All
I
right,
think you're right.
anyone else?
I like it's has a Middle Eastern feel to it, especially with the percussion and her vocals.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next song on the album is the one song that does not have a video. It's very 1992 with the kind of loopy beat. Stay By Me. This song might have, in the back of the day, been my least favorite song. I never skipped it, but when I was listening to it in the car today, I was like, I'm feeling this. Like, it sounded really fresh to me today, and I don't know. What do you guys think of this one? Stay By Me.
I honestly think it could have been a single, a really big hit.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. It could have been a single. The opening beat to that wasn't that was that sampled from uh is it Primal Scream? Didn't they have a song out about right about the same time that I don't want to lose you, love. Don't want it, and it had that
It's got that
Oh,
same
90s
drum
beat,
pattern to it.
screamadelic, screamadelic.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like soul to soul, like all those kind of beats that
yeah. That kind of dragged me into that song. When I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, I love this beat. I'm glad she's using the same kind of, you know, it's probably an exact sample from that song
right.
and to bring us into it. But this is a great song. I mean, again, it's strong. It could have been a single. It kind of floats too, but in a different way than Primitive. I mean, um, I guess Primitive, you're like on a sailboat, just kind of, slowly drifting and
Through the night.
on yeah, and on stay with me, you're on a catamaran and you're moving a little bit faster and and it's a little more exciting and I don't know, it's just uh, this is one of those albums there's not enough to say about any of the songs really.
I think it's one of her most truly romantic songs. You do get a sense, now I don't know if this is true, that it's about Yuri, her husband at the time, and the last lyrics in the song, and we're standing in a thundercloud dark as your hair, so, Annie can never, Dave always talked about it with Right by Your Side. She's got this very happy song, but she has to have one lyric in it that's a little
No.
bit comes down again or whatever. But um, I don't know why I don't know how it became the only song on Diva that didn't have a video with all these various video compilations that she did. But again, there's a romanticism to it.
I love her layered harmonies in the middle that kind of like where they stack her. It's just so, it gave me the chills today when I was listening to it. I was like, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
great. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Stay By Me? It's hard to talk about an album that we just all love so much. Every song is good. Doesn't have the drama. All right. The Gift. I totally ripped this song off on a song that I recorded on one of my albums. I'm like, oh, I totally ripped this off. I kind of consider this the closer of the album, and then Keep Young and Beautiful is kind of like the encore. But
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
I
such
love
a,
this song.
oh, it's so beautiful. It's so
So
understated.
beautiful.
I mean,
It's yes. It's probably her best her best solo song, I think. I mean, there's so many to choose from, but when I think of Annie Lennox and I think of a good, you know, meaningful, slow song, this is the one I go to every time.
yeah.
And there's just something magical about the gift.
Yeah.
I'm kind of babbling, but you guys
It's,
probably have more interesting things to say.
sorry,
But
I'm
it's a
having
great
trouble
song.
hearing. There's the line in it where it says, "Take this gilded cage of pain and set me free. Take this overcoat of shame. It never did belong to me." Is there a line where she has a coat reference or something, a cloak? Or is that just what she was always, the Queen of Doom? It's so beautiful, this song.
Yeah. What do you guys think The Gift is that she's talking about?
Well, I think The Gift is about Dave Stewart.
I do too.
That is my thought. And I think it's thank you for giving me this. And she closes it with, and it's my favorite part of the song. And remember, you all remember, Here Comes the Rain Again is my favorite
Yeah.
song of all time. But she says, and I can almost hear the rain falling. Don't you know it feels so good? So let's go back out into the rain again, just like we said we always would. And I kind of, and I don't know if this is true. I've never read anything where she's talked about what the gift is about. To me, it's almost like, okay, I forgive you for all the things that we fought about all the years, and I love you still. and I had to do this, but you're the one who gave me the confidence to do this. I
Yeah.
think it's a tribute to him. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm romanticizing it.
I
But I
learned
think
from
it
you,
is.
but now I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
this
Well,
whole
the whole
verse about I
thing.
need to go outside, I need to leave the smoke because I can't go
Yeah.
on living in the same joke. It seems
Yeah.
our lives have taken on a different kind of twist now that you have given me the perfect gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing. And you've fallen, well, I know we're going to do all the lyrics, but we have fallen from our shelves to face the truth about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
This is
think
some
that.
deep shit. Like
I
Annie
know,
goes
this is
so deep.
beautiful.
Well,
What?
I said it. I said it on one of our last podcasts about We Two Are One. I think there are a lot of songs on Diva that I think she finished what she wanted that she didn't quite finish on We Two Are One. There are lots of things. There are a lot of. You can go back to that podcast and listen to what I think I said it on there. But I think Diva really kind of finished what she wanted. That if it had been a different thing and it hadn't been Jimmy Iovine and they'd given it maybe a little bit more of a break, but again, even if she'd done this, if she'd had time and she'd come back and David given her the time to do it, if they'd put this out as Eurythmics, if she'd written all these songs and they'd done them, it would not have. It had to be this. It
It had to be
had to
this.
be this. It had to be this time. It had to be her. She had something to say, and people liked it. There's some trivia that I wanted to ask. Who was the famous person who got Diva as a gift? Does anybody remember the story?
No.
I didn't hear.
Oh, who famously received Diva as a gift?
You know what? I was actually thinking it was Diva, but I think it was Medusa.
Oh,
Are you talking about
Monica Lewinsky.
It was Medusa.
Oh God.
I've heard it. I've heard it both ways.
I researched that today because I was thinking, I was thinking time frame 92, 93, but then it was,
Yeah,
when was the scandal? What year?
would have been 96,
Odd.
97.
90.
It was
95.
Medusa because that was listed as in the evidence.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll save that for the next
Okay.
podcast.
Yeah. We'll have that
Okay.
trivia.
That's a
love
different. That's a different kind of gift. All right. Anyway, moving on.
You
Well-
did make me come back to politics.
Oh, it's getting hot in here.
I know. I did not have relations with the Medusa CD. All right. Anyway,
Jeez.
the gift, perfect ending to the album. But wait, there's more. Keep Young and Beautiful was always my Breathless moment because I'm a huge Madonna fan and kind of had that like Madonna Breathless back to the 40s, 30s kind of thing, campy. I thought that this was such a clever way to end the album, and I think the gift is it's so down. I think it didn't ruin the album by having this campy moment at the end. In fact, it kind of endeared me to it. And if you're wise, what did she say? Trim the fat off. I'm like, oh, I could take that advice. What do you guys think of Keep Young and Beautiful?
Oh, I adore it.
Yeah.
Very campy.
It's so much fun.
I liked it because it was thumbing her nose at how women are supposed to be.
Right.
And
the
I
whole
thought,
album
yes,
wasn't it?
Thank you, sister.
Yep.
That whole thing. You had to be a certain way.
The whole album was an exploration of femininity, and I think having this tongue-in-cheek, campy moment at the end was kind of like the final. I don't know, very clever.
Well, what isn't that typical Annie Lennox? You
Yep.
start with the album title in the sense of like what am I holding, and it's Diva, which she's using as not as a serious piece, and she ends it with this thing, as Lynn says, I'm going to use this again to remind you,
Well, it was a little bit of an FU toward how women are supposed to
Yep.
be.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
long before Annie Lennox became known as a global feminist, she was doing it already in all of her songs. all
Sure.
of her, and especially with the Savage album, especially with this album, she and and when she was her androgyny was not about it was making herself an equal, making herself I can do whatever I want. So diva is that that affirmation again from her that I'll do what I want, and Clive Davis, he talks about this in his biography that you know she could have been the biggest singer in the world, and he could have given her all kinds of songs, and she would have had massive hits. Um, but he says of it that she was an artist, and that he was never comfortable enough going up to her and say, but he knew who she was, and she knew who she was, and that's what you were going to get.
Yep.
So, you know,
Well,
um, amazing.
when you think about Dave and Annie, like they filled up a stage, they filled up the arena, lots of star power. But I know Diva was a tongue-in-cheek title, but Annie Lennox could walk out to the stage, just her, and she had just as much power, and she could fill up the room just as much, just her walking out on that stage. So that's a testament to her power. Uh,
Mhm.
this might maybe this wasn't the most entertaining discussion because there wasn't the conflict of opinion, and I just have so much love. It's just love and emotion, and this is just an important album. It was such an important album.
I thought we should. I almost thought we should have started the podcast off. I wanted to ask: is anyone not giving this album a 10 at the end?
Yeah,
So we'll find out.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
any other thoughts on the album before we do the rating?
Yeah.
I know we're all tired, so I'll get this up online tonight, though.
I will. I'll say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
And I've always said this about Annie Lennox. When it comes to Annie Lennox, that, I mean, how can you even rate her down? Because you're gonna get excellent lyrics. You're gonna get, a killer, like, emotive performance. I mean, not so every song is, I mean, is there really a bad song that she's written? It not really. I mean, you can see what she's going for in each song. So she's just an incredible artist. So yeah, I can't, Mark. I'm giving it a 10.
All right, so David's we have 1-10. Lynn, what do you give Diva? Scale of 1 to 10. 10.
Of course.
Mark.
There isn't any doubt it's a 10. There isn't any doubt, and I'm the one who gives everything a 10. But it's like David said. I can't fault her when she's doing anything. When Eurythmics, I mean, it's good stuff. But I mean, it's a 10. There isn't any doubt. Uh, yeah, it's a 10.
All right, John.
I think with like the history behind it, and then the fact that this was her debut solo, full album, it's really strong, and I would give it a 10.
Oh, Jim, it's down to you, and then I gotta give my rating.
So, so remember when we were doing Eurythmics Peace, and I said this is one of those albums which is very rare for me, where I could listen to it from the front end to the back end and not skip one song. That's exactly how Diva is too. So, and
I'm sure there's no question here. I get a little emotional thinking about it. One of the most important albums in my life. I mean, I think we've all had pain in our life, and sometimes these albums are by your side more than human beings are.
Yeah.
And this is one of those albums for me. So, without a doubt, 10. I think it's her best solo album. There's other ones that we'll talk about that are great, but this album is just, there's not a flawed moment from the first note to the last note. The sequencing is spot on. Uh, if Jimmy was here, I don't think he would probably change the track. I mean, Diva's the rare perfect album. I don't know how many times on Phonogenics 101 the whole panel gave a 10. So, oh, don't you guys?
Just think about how difficult it may have been for her. She wasn't sure she could do it. she says that she wasn't sure she could do something on her own, and that it, you know, it got such rave reviews, and it is so good. That took a lot of gumption. She had it. I mean, she's always had it. And I want to say too, Jeremy, I love your story about it. I love that you're open about it. That it meant so much to you, and I just love music so much. I don't believe music should ever be in the background. I mean, music is to be heard and loved. And it's because it means so much to us, whatever time it is. And, you can go back in so many times in your life, and a certain song
Yep.
it instantly takes you back to that. But I think your story about it is cool. It's clear that it means a lot to you.
And I'm going to blow your guys' mind. I thought of a third album. I had Diva and Erotica. A third album that was with me everywhere in 92 was Sade Love Deluxe.
That's
Yeah.
a good one to think of.
Oh, No Ordinary Love. It's like you listen to No Ordinary Love, followed by Deeper and Deeper, followed by Why. Like, oh my God. Blows your mind. So, friends, we are going to meet again next month where we talk about Medusa, which Annie threw us a curveball with her second solo album, did all covers. Only Annie Lennox. But thank you for sharing this podcast. It conjured up more emotion than I thought it would, and I just want to say I love you guys. Like I'm so thankful for this group, and I hope people enjoy watching this. And I feel like I'm gonna get right off this podcast and get in the chat. Like we have more to talk about. So, all right, I will see you all next month for No More I Love Yous, and thank you so much. So, see you all
Looking
soon.
forward to it.
Bye.
Take care.